Okay, so hello everyone. We have some time this evening to look at quite an interesting question about the relation between ethics and emptiness. In English, we can make quite a distinction between morality and ethics. Morality tends to refer to rules, and rules can be established in a general way, and you can apply them onto situations. Ethics is concerned more with how we bring ourselves into the world in specific situations, which are usually quite complicated. For example, we have the question of euthanasia, or the voluntary killing of people who are not in good health. You can take a general proposition that all life is precious and that killing is a sin. However, of course, if somebody has great suffering and medication they can take doesn't take that away, and their life situation is very limited and for them humiliating, they may wish not to live anymore. So this raises question, is my life mine? Is it something which belongs to me, or am I in life? If my life is mine, maybe I can do whatever I want with it. And from the Buddhist point of view, it's quite complicated because if my ego is a kind of imposter and my true nature is awareness, then my life is being stolen by the ego that says it's mine. We meet just now, we greet each other, we say hello in some way. We feel that we exist, that other people exist. And we use the computer as a way of making a connection between these two separate islands of existence. This is our ordinary view. We are, as human beings, we're able to feel both pleasure and pain. Generally speaking, we may prefer pleasure to pain. But because we are human beings, we have access to many levels of complexity. So in London, it's dark at the moment and raining. And there are people out running on the street. For me, the idea of running in the rain is painful. For these people, the idea of running in the rain is pleasurable, even although the experience may be painful. And it is our own capacity to engage with complex experience in this way that makes our wish to fulfill the bodhisattva vow and work for others, it makes this difficult. To be a sentient being, to have feelings, sensations in the body, emotions, hopes and fears, and so on, means that we often live with conflicting currents inside us. We might have a conflict between our rational self and our emotions. And we can try to think our way out of these difficulties. But thinking arrives after the fact of the situation, or it comes in advance of the situation. Should I do this? Should I do that? But in the immediacy of having to make a decision, there's often little time for reflective or analytic thought. So from the Buddhist point of view, we want to optimize our capacity for calm and clarity. As long as we are bound into reactivity to whatever is happening outside us that we perceive through our senses, or things happening in the body or in our mind, we don't have much calm. And especially now, when people have access through their phones to streams of information about political activity and so on, there are many possibilities of intense reactivity. In the face of injustice, many people feel called upon to go out into the street and protest. And of course, in many countries, the state takes these protests as a kind of provocation, and so the police come in and there are more reasons to protest. There are many, many things to be upset about. The destruction of the environment, homeless people, the people who become refugees due to war, the abuse of children and women. All of these situations where we encounter suffering are causes which can bring about excitation. So we know that in modern countries, we have many theories of social, economic, prejudicial causation which give rise to such problems. And we can track the destruction of the rainforest back to the desire to plant soya or palm oil in order to feed the desires of gluttony, which are pervasive in capitalist commodity countries. So if we could stop people consuming so much beef, for example, you wouldn't need soy to feed the animals, so you wouldn't need to chop down the forest. So we can formulate a solution. If more people become vegan, then we won't lose the tropical rainforest. And if you don't become vegan, you become personally responsible for the destruction of that forest. Now, if somebody gives me a reason to feel guilty and bad about myself, am I likely to say, thank you so much for informing me that I have even more faults than I knew about already? I was beginning to get bored, but now I have something else to worry about. So that's good. This is not likely to happen. So although there are many non-governmental organizations and charities and really committed people operating in the field of climate change and protection of the vulnerable, these activities often are ineffective. It's not that we should just try harder. From the Buddhist point of view, the issue is the paradigm or the interpretive system which provides a frame of reference inside which we consider the problems. In the world now, because of the rise of the cult of the individual, we have the assertion of individual human rights, a right to self-definition. No one can tell me who I am. I am who I think I am, which on one level sounds very good. But of course, we tend to have a lot of thoughts about who we are. And so instead of being able simply to define ourselves and gain some clarity, we are endlessly processing ourselves and coming up with a new senses of who we are. This leads, of course, to more turbulence. The more we read and study about economics and social construction, the more ideas we can have about what will be effective strategies for change. But as we know, that, for example, in America, President Obama tried very hard to get general public health availability. So they tried to build up a new system. Then came Mr. Trump, who set out to bring that system down. And now maybe Mr. Biden, if he gets a chance, he will attempt to put it back up again. In each of these moves, so much thought and feeling and hope and fear goes into the production of analysis and expansion or contraction. Now, this is the world we live in. Daily, we are going to be confronted by situations in which there is unhappiness, and we can identify seeming causes for these unhappinesses. These interpretations are all based on duality. That is to say, there are some people who are suffering, and their suffering is real, and they are real. And there are some actions which could be done to stop the suffering, and these are good actions. So the people who perform these good actions are good people, and we should support the good people in doing the good actions. This is the general way in which we think about the problems of the world. And we will be encouraged to think in this way by the cultures that we live in. The Buddhist view is very different. The Buddha set out in the very first teachings that suffering is a fact. And he said the suffering comes from attachment and ignorance, especially from the desire to have things that we don't have, and the desire not to encounter the things we don't want. He didn't blame governments or tax policies or greedy capitalists. He said the cause is in the mind. The body moves because of the mind. The thoughts which arise in the mind and which are adopted and carried forward as this is what I want to do means that my body engages with the world to transform situations. So we have to look at our mind. Now, as long as we are looking out onto the world where there seem to be stable things like my chair, my shoes, the presence of these reliable objects outside my body seems to confirm that my own body is reliable and predictable. Oh, the first thing we start to look at in Dharma is impermanence. We see that political ideologies change. We see that the economic situation of different countries changes. So when the Spanish first went to South America, they got a lot of gold and many resources. And as they gradually lost their colonies there, they didn't have access to the gold. Well, the golden period of Spanish culture was dependent on someone else's gold. And then when you don't have that gold, your culture starts to decline a bit. We look at history and we see empires expand and contract. We look at our own bodies, how they change over the years. We look at attitudes to different social groups, different religious groups, and see how they change. Nowadays, Roman Catholics and Protestants have to pretend that they respect each other. It's no longer considered very polite or civilized to burn people in the public square. So the clarity that the Pope is the Antichrist or the Protestants are demons, this clarity has been lost. And now we have to have our gentle, liberal acceptance of many different views. What seemed very true and important becomes less true and important. And then we look in towards our own mind and we find that our thoughts and feelings never stop moving. Sensations come and go in the body. Even the idea that this is my body is an idea which comes and goes very quickly. Whatever we take to be permanent and stable is established by thoughts and beliefs which are impermanent and unstable. So the thoughts that we have, that we believe in, were not thoughts we were born with. They have developed inside us according to our education, our culture, the kind of people we hang out with, and so on. So as many of you know, this in Buddhism, we call this dependent co-origination. Dependent on your parents and how they were and the kind of food they had and how much money they had. You grow up in a family with you develop certain expectations. Even when you decide that you really don't like your parents' value system and you turn your back on it, and as soon as you can leave home, you go somewhere else, your own new positioning has been formulated as part of a dialogue with their positioning. However I position myself in the world, my positioning is going to stand in relation to other people's positions. And we develop our value system and our ethical principles through dialogue, whether internal or external, with other people's ethical and value systems. That is to say, they are relative. They arise due to causes and conditions. But in most societies, they find some way to try to put the rules of society into a kind of absolute truth. So Moses goes up the mountain and he gets the 10 commandments from God and he brings them back down. And he says, hey, don't argue with this. This is not made by human beings. This is the word of God. You must follow it. You can't argue or disagree or choose half or a quarter because it's true. And so we have many different religions and social systems where they say that the way of behaving is the truth. This is how we have to behave. And in Buddhism also, we have this bad behaviors of the body, of the voice, and the mind. And the people who become monks and nuns have to adopt hundreds of rules which they use to direct their behavior. In order to protect the integrity of their vows, monks and nuns have to be protected from ordinary life. Because if you live in the ordinary world, you're going to be faced with many situations that will cause you to compromise the clarity of the imposed rule. So again, if we think about ethics, ethics is like a kind of compass. It gives you a sense of direction in life. The problem is that you have the actual world, what is appearing through your senses, and then you have your map, and you have to adjust your compass and the map and the territory. So if you become a soldier, the general says, our government has decided we are at war with these people. Yesterday they were our friends, but today they are our enemy. You are soldiers, salute the flag, and if you kill the enemy, this is virtue. Because the government has decided that yesterday's friend is today's enemy. They have been reborn as devils. And so killing them is a blessing. Soldiers, support the honor of your mother, kill the enemy. So this is when we start to see in the midst of the confusion of impermanence and change, people are trying to write on the flowing surface of the water of experience some rules and regulations and fixed definitions. So let's return to the general Buddhist view. When we see how relative, how interdependent are all these definitions of the qualities and values of the items of the world and also of ourselves, then we see that our values have no inherent truth to them, no inherent existence. For example, when I was young and a student, I didn't like the idea of having to respect my elders. I thought, old people, what do they know? But unfortunately, the circle of life turns, and now I am an old person. And in the social structure of Britain today, old people don't count for much. The idea that old people have wisdom has vanished. If you can get all the information you need from your phone, you don't need to go and talk to your granny. So in that way, the belief structures that we grow up at one time start to change. This is what is meant by emptiness in Buddhism, that the seeming true existence and true value and unchangeable importance of any situation is actually floating in air. It's not supported by any solid foundation. It means it is empty of inherent existence. It means its existence is not supported by any personal essence or substance. So at first, when we study this in Dharma, we do it in an analytic way. We look at different phenomena and we see how they arise through the placing together of different factors. So if you have a book, you can look at the binding, you can look at the spine of the book, and you see that either it's stitched or glued. The book is a collection of separate pages. By the juxtaposition, by the placing in a particular order of the different pages, maybe with some pictures, and you create the illusion of the book. If you like the book, you believe it's important. But for sure, there will be people who don't like the book. So when the Chinese came into Tibet, they forced the monks to use the Buddhist books in the toilet. They saying to them, what you think is holy and high and noble is shit. And in the Cultural Revolution in China, when the Red Guards became very active, they did a lot of confronting people, thought processing, to try to change their attitude so that they would no longer believing the wrong things. They say, oh, these holy lamas, look at them. They're not sitting on their throne now. Where are their magical powers? Then they encourage the people to beat the lamas. Oh, see, they suffer. How can they protect you? But we, the communists, we have guns. We will protect you. A lot of that behavior went on. It also happened in Russia in many, many cultures. When we really look in this, we see there is no end, there is not the least atom of inherent truth, which is manifest as a substance. Buddhist books only have meaning for people who believe in them. You might think they're quite important. Maybe your parents say, hey, don't waste your life in these nonsense things. Go out and have fun. Go dancing. What is Buddhism going to give you? You just become a strange person. So we have to see, oh, this is important for me because I believe in it. It is the energy of my mind which is making this important. It's not inherently important. This is why many monasteries have been pulled down and the statues sold, the jewels taken out of them, and so on. When they make a statue, inside it's hollow, and so they put things inside called zung, which means to hold, things which will hold a blessing and help the statue be more powerful and more real. Then they put a metal plate on the bottom hold all the jewels and the blessing objects safe inside the statue. And then you bless the statue, and finally you paint the eyes in. And then you believe, oh, now this is really Padmasambhava or Tara. And if the statue is small, somebody might take it and put it on top of your head, and then you say, oh, thank you for this blessing. And they say, now I give you the blessing of Tara. They don't say, I give you the blessing of the statue of Tara. Tara is with this statue. The real Tara is here in the statue. But all compounded things are impermanent. The statue is held in place by faith. When the faith goes down, the statue becomes something to try to sell. Britain is full of churches which are being sold and turned into houses. The number of people who go to the Christian churches gets less and less every year. These are all signs or teachings on impermanence. People gathered money to build a church in a small village because it was very important to have this. The church is built by the mind. The Dharma Center is established by the mind. The mind comes first. From the mind comes the money to buy the resources and the physical willingness to make the actual building. The mind is the most important aspect of your existence. But what is your mind? Usually we think of our mind in terms of its content. If we want to know what's going on in someone else's mind, we say, oh, what are you thinking? As if they tell you about what they are thinking, you will somehow have access to the actual shape of their mind. But of course, we think many different things. As soon as a thought arises in the mind, it's vanishing. You remember something and then the memory fades. Is this the mind? Thoughts, feelings, hopes, fears? These are experiences. An experience arises and vanishes. The experience is a showing of the potential of the mind, the possibility of the mind to display or lay out or reveal many different patterns. So, in Buddhism, they talk about the mind itself as being the ground or the source or the basis. So, if you imagine the earth, out of the earth, many things can grow: flowers, potatoes, wheat, and so on. If you look at the flower, it doesn't tell you much about the earth. The flower is blue, but the earth is not blue. You look at the potato, the fact that you can eat a potato doesn't mean you can eat the earth. The earth shows its potential in forms which are not identical with it. This is the same with the mind. If somebody is always looking very sad and physically they're inactive and they don't know what to do with their life, we might say, oh, they are depressed, as if there is something wrong with their mind. And if they go to the psychiatrist, they can get some medication because there's something wrong with the mind. If you take the mind to be the brain, the medication alters the biochemistry in the brain, and then the person feels better. But is this the mind? This is a flower arising in the mind. And the psychiatrist is a very good gardener. And he knows that if we apply this chemical to the weed, it will turn into a flower. So now the mind is showing many happy flowers. But what is the mind itself? From the very beginning, our mind has been unborn. Unborn means it doesn't become something. Because the mind itself is not a thing, what arises from it is also not a thing. Something appears, we have thoughts, feelings. On the basis of feeling hungry, you might decide to eat an apple. Appreciate the apple by destroying it, because the apple offers itself. As you chew it, it mulches down and then you can swallow it. If the apple was sitting like a stone, then it wouldn't be much use to you. The value of the apple is its destructibility. So as you chew it, these enzymes in your mouth start to break it down, then it goes into your stomach and you metabolize certain aspects of it. The apple is empty of appleness. Or we could say the essence of the apple is emptiness. It doesn't have any essential positioning. The center part of the apple, which in English we call the core, indicates something basic. It's the area where we find the seeds. From the seeds, other apples can arise if we grow an apple tree. The seeds are not the essence of this apple, they're the potential for another apple. So it's very, very important to see that emptiness doesn't mean an opposition to appearance. We live in a world of appearances. We ourselves have an appearance. Our appearance and our embodiment has solid bits like our bones and more soft bits like our flesh. The bones themselves, if they are left, will gradually dry up and turn to powder. Due to causes and conditions, our body continues. There are many factors which can cause us to die. This body has no essence of its own. If you stop breathing, you die. When you breathe, you take that which is not you into you and it becomes you. And then when you breathe out, that which was you becomes not you. It's very important to observe this. Your embodiment is a conversation with the air and with the ground under your feet and with your food and drink and clothing. You are the movement of the world. Your body is made out of the elements of the world. You are part of the world. You might think, no, I am an individual. I act onto the world, but you act on the world in the world. You can't come out of the world. Even if you close your eyes and cover your face, you're in the world. This shows the emptiness of our ego self. Because I believe I am a separate person, I can say, I'm different from you. I'm not like you. Your body is made of the same basic elements as mine. You have thoughts and I have thoughts, but your thoughts are not my thoughts. I have better thoughts than you. And I know this is true. And I know that you don't know that it's true because you think that your thoughts are better than mine. And this is why we don't like each other. This is why wars arise on the basis of difference of thoughts. Now, you could imagine you might, if you're very desperate, want to kill someone to steal their gold. You can do something with the gold, but I'm going to kill you because of your thoughts. But we can't catch the thoughts. Thoughts are part of the inner movement of our existence. The body is moving, thoughts are moving, emotions are moving. I am movement in a world of movement. This is all I am. This is all you are. Our freedom is freedom to influence the patterning of our movements. Now, although these movements, because they are dynamic and unfolding, are not things you can catch, this, of course, doesn't mean that they're not impactful. We know that if somebody is sweet to us and smiles at us and appreciates us, we feel good. And if somebody is unkind or insulting, we don't feel good. That is to say, the breath comes up through their throat. The vibration of the muscles and skin in their throat creates a vibration of sound that goes out in the air. This travels through the air till it comes in my ear. This is a vibration. But it's revealed to me as, you've insulted me. This is horrible. Why did you say that? You want to upset me. You want to break my heart. Why would you do that? No, we take it for granted in these situations that there is a real person out there, outside me, doing something to me. And they have just attacked me by sending vibrations through the air. This is terrible. We should have a law against vibrating the air. But then if they say, I love you, then that's a very nice vibration. So we need to get a little monitor for the vibrations coming near us. If we look at this, we see, oh, I am very sensitive. My sense of self is quite unstable. Although I might think I exist, I am like this, it changes so quickly, so easily. I am empty of self-essence. And yet I appear, I manifest, I show posture, gesture, facial expression, and so on. I am movement in movement, not a fixed thing. And therefore, I need to work with these circumstances. You are movement in my mind. Whatever you are for you, I don't know. But you arise for me as my experience. So you may think you live outside and you walk around and you do many different things. But for me, you are revealed as the movement of my mind. I look at your face and I see movement. I can say, this is your face. That is an interpretation. What I see is shape, and color moving. I hear you speaking. That is an interpretation. Interpretation means my idea. I identify what you are doing. You're only talking if I know you're talking. In fact, at this moment, I can hear Milton talking nonsense because he's not speaking in English. Meaning is embedded in English. But unfortunately, Milton is saying some funny words which have no meaning. And we see, oh, if I knew Portuguese, I would understand. To understand Portuguese or not is the movement of the mind. The meaning is not in the words. The meaning lies in being able to vibrate in a resonance which allows the word to reveal its meaning. If I don't have an access to that vibration, it's meaningless. The mind generates meaning. Without the mind, there is nothing at all. When the mind moves, experience arises. So there are many kinds of meditation where we can explore this. In many tantric forms of meditation, we dissolve into the deity and together we dissolve into emptiness. That is to say, the elaboration of the visualization of the deity becomes a method for deconstructing and dissolving the habitual elaboration of my sense of self. And then there is nothing, it's just empty. Then gradually some movement of the mind occurs. And gradually the world arises for us. Where did the world come from? From emptiness. The purpose of this kind of meditation practice is to see directly that in this moment, the world is arising from emptiness. Everything you see is the radiance of your mind. Your teacup, what's in your fridge, everything is the radiance of your mind because you are experiencing it. If there is no one to experience the cheese, is it cheese? We grow up maybe eating cheese in our family. We become familiar with what is cheese, different kinds of cheese. And so when we come close to that, we have the color, the smell, the taste, and the concept. Some of the potential of the cheese is revealed through the smell and the taste, but largely its potential is revealed through our conceptualization that this is manchego, for example. So we will start to link emptiness and ethics together. But the key point is to observe for yourself that you are movement in the space of unfolding. Okay, so we're going to take a break now for 20 minutes. See you then. Pleasure. Good. Okay, so if we return to the way in which, for me, what Milton says in Portuguese is meaningless. This is a way into understanding what we read in the text as sound and emptiness. When I hear Milton speaking, I hear sound. The sound is, if you like, thin. If somebody understands Portuguese, when they hear Milton speaking, the sound is thick. They hear the sound as full of meaning. Now, as some of us have looked many times before, if the meaning was in the sound, I also could understand it. The meaning is in the mind of the person who understands Portuguese. That is to say, the movement of their mind unites with the vibration of the sound to generate meaning. That is to say, the meaning is not self-existing in the words, but as we looked before, due to dependent co-origination, the particular sounds coming out of Milton's mouth and the quality of understanding the Portuguese language, when these two arise together, then the person understands what Milton is saying. Now, in the Dzogchen teachings, they say that the basic radiance of the ground comes out as light and rays of light and sound. And then the light refracts and seems to manifest as 5-colored light. If you look, I don't know, imagine you have a red wall in front of you. When you look, you see red. You don't see the clear light, which is the invisible medium you're looking with. Light becomes visible in that sense when it shows the vibration of its ingredients or its potential. In this energy manifesting, which is the basis of everything we experience, thickens more and more as various vibrations which are inherent in the empty ground start to manifest. So, for example, we have the vibration of mental dullness or assumption. So you see someone, you go out on the street, you see there, oh, someone is there. That is to say, you believe your interpretation. A bird doesn't see a person, a fly doesn't see a person, but you, due to the particular patterning of your sense organs, see a person. So in the Buddhist thing, they say we have these 5 sense organs that we are familiar with. And we have a 6th sense organ, which is the heart, which is where the mind is. Mind here has a particular meaning. It means consciousness. Consciousness here means our capacity to apprehend, to take hold of something and identify what it is. So with these 6 consciousnesses operating, I identify here is a person. Now, sometimes when you walk down the street, there's no conscious identification of people. You're walking past a lot of people, but they hardly register. But when this, the first of the 5 poisons or the 5 afflictions operates, then you have a kind of solidification and being here-ness of the person you encounter. For whatever reason, maybe because they're very big or very small, or they just impact you and think, oh, someone is there. And you might have some positive interest in them. You might feel some desire or curiosity, or you might not like them. They might look a bit scary. It's a dark night. If you're outside, oh, I don't like that person near me. Now, with your eyes, you're seeing a shape with colors, but I don't like this person. Where is the person? This is your mind. What you see is thin, but your reaction, this is a person, this is a dangerous looking person, I don't like this person. Now they become thick. This density is your mind's mental activity, but usually we don't recognize this. We think I am accurately identifying a property of the object. And the fact that I don't like this person strengthens my belief that I am this person and they are somebody else and I don't like them. So the sense of duality, of separation, of differentiation is generated moment by moment by one's own mental activity. Now, this can apply more generally in terms of prejudice. The prejudice could be on the basis of gender or age or nationality or skin color. Oh, it's one of them. I know what they are like. We need to have rules and regulations against these people. So, for example, in quite a few European countries, they have laws for controlling gypsies. The gypsies are not our people, but we know they are liars and thieves and they do this and that. Oh, do you know some gypsies? Are you stupid? Why would I want to know gypsies? They're liars and cheats. They do these bad things. In this way, my prejudice, my beliefs, my ideas are now projected into the other person, and they are thick and negative for me. And when a social group is negative and has become dense, it's easier to pin new definitions onto them. And so many systems of morality make decisions about people's value. In many traditional patriarchal cultures, if a young girl gets pregnant before she's married, then she becomes a whore. She only ever had sex with her boyfriend, with someone she loved. But people say you're a dirty whore, you break the honor of our family, you don't belong here. So when these kind of moralistic, judgmental attitudes are very strong, they can be injected very quickly into a very thin, innocent situation and make it very, very dense. And certainly in England, it used to be the case that if a young servant girl in a big house was forced to have sex by the lord of the manor, the big man, and she gets pregnant, well, this is a sign she is a bad girl. We can't keep bad girls in this house. She will corrupt everyone else. And very often, girls in that situation, they're thrown out, they have no money, they drift to the city. And then the naming becomes a prediction because they end up working as prostitutes. They have no other way to eat. So as the great Dzogchen teacher, Namkhai Norbu, said many, many times, do not enter into judgment. Judgment is very attractive because it's very quick and it's very definite. We seem to know something which is clearly true about another person or a situation. Now, usually if we spend time with people, they show themselves in different ways. We see them when they're happy, we see them when they're sad, and we realize, oh, this is a complex human being. But when you move towards the person with your judgment and you pin your judgment onto them, there is no space for their lived complexity to show itself. That is to say, you have installed knowledge about someone who you take to be real and truly existing, and you put this in the place of experience. Because when you get to know someone, you experience them showing their different flavors. And then it's much more difficult to make any definite statement about them. And when you can't put the judgment onto them, they sin. Because the more you see the variety of how the person can present themselves, each of these presentations is very thin. If we say John is always boring, then that's all John is. We say, oh, sometimes John's a lot of fun, but God, sometimes he's really boring. So sometimes he's fun and sometimes he's boring. So this seeming contradiction, it makes us more curious. How come he's like that? And the more you get close to the person in the details of how they show themselves, it becomes less and less possible to put them in a box. So we see something very interesting here. If you thicken people or kinds of dogs or animals or mosquitoes, and you seem to have a definite knowledge, you lose variety. And the more you allow this multi-flavoring or multi-coloring of a person, the different qualities that they show in different situations, each of these becomes lighter and thinner and more able to play with other qualities. So in that sense, ethics is concerned with attention to the thinness of this moment, whereas morality focuses on the thickness of knowing something definite. So once we start to really live as our own motility, our own movement, we realize that we can't define ourselves. Everything I say about myself is just a little part of the whole. So if I say it in a strong way, it's a lie. It's not true. Oh, I'm very lazy. And then somebody says, hey, but look what you were doing last week. You were cutting down the trees. Immediately you have this other version of the person. It thins out the idea that they're lazy. So hopefully you start to see that ethics is concerned with movement, which is actual, and morality is concerned with freezing and fixing and making solid. Okay, so now we have emptiness, which is ungraspable, and ethics, which is pointing to relating in the moment. So what use is this going to be to me? How will I know how to behave? I'm empty, you're empty, and it's just this moment. What will I do? From the point of view of meditation, this is an unnecessary question. The anxious question, what will I do? How will I behave? What will I say to them? Becomes like a kind of wedge that separates subject and object, or subject and subject. Because what will I say to them means I'm already developing some idea in my mind that they're like this, and what do I have to do to please them or annoy them if I want? I don't know them well enough to know how to behave with them. When I get to know you better, then I'll feel more at ease because I will know what you're like. Now you see the walls of the prison are getting thicker. I know who you are. I remember what you did last week. That's how you're going to be. So I will only feel safe with you if you are predictable. So no playfulness, no creativity, no imagination. Please, just be an ordinary person. Don't cause trouble. So this is when we see what we do, in order to diminish my anxiety in the face of the unknown, I want to squeeze you into a very small frame. And this is what we want to avoid in the practice of Dzogchen. We have to become very aware of the first arisings of anxiety. Anxiety indicates that there is something not quite right, which would imply that I know what is right. And if the actual situation veers, if it goes away from my notion of what is right, then I start to feel anxious. So now I am the measure of all things. According to the patterning of my mind, I will know the truth about everything in the world. And the more successful I am at predicting how it should be, the less I need to look. So now I can be fully confident in the power of my stupidity, and nothing should disturb it. This is not how we live as meditators. Anxiety is the basis of violence. We have to keep the refugees out. We have to control the gangs. We have to control the tribal people. They make me feel uncomfortable. Control them. But what about looking at me? What is my anxiety? I don't feel comfortable. What is that? I don't feel certain. I don't know how it's going to be. My knowledge lies at the basis of my sense of security. So it may be useful to again look at the nature of ignorance. Our mind itself is pure from the very beginning. Pure means There's nothing there which could be touched by anything else or contaminated. The mind itself is whole, it's complete. When we are aware of that the mind is like space, it is infinite and has no substance, we don't know our mind in the way you might know where your keys are. It's a different kind of knowing. It's a knowing as a revelation. It's just, oh, very open. When momentarily from the same ground, there arises a little whirl of density that seems to be a something. It is a some pattern, but if it's taken as a something, then immediately density seems to belong in it. Who does that? A slightly dulled or separated aspect of awareness. So, for example, if you are outside and maybe in the summertime and the sunlight is very bright and you turn a corner and it's dark, it takes a while for your eyes to adjust. There's a kind of disorientation in that moment. Nothing bad has happened. There's no hiatus or tear. Hiatus means like a disturbance, a rupture. Your eye adjusts and then it's fine. So it's like that. Now, if when you went into this side street and you can't see and you felt shocked, you thought, oh, I don't want to be here. And immediately you have subject and object. Instead of a flow of experience arising and passing, there's suddenly, oh, what is this? And that sets up a vibration which continues. Oh, I don't want to have that again. I must be careful. Now, it's very difficult to describe this in language because it's something which is happening before an established ego identity has come. It's the very beginning of the separation of a moment from the flow of moments. Now, actually, the moment of shock has gone. It's not like a trauma. There's no substance for the wound to be made into. It was like an explosion, bang, whoo, and then it's gone. Nobody's died. But what was that? Who made that? Why did it happen? And so instead of a resettling in the flow of experience, this one moment is turned into something special, something apart. And of course, the more you think about it, the more you investigate it, it becomes more dense for you. So this is where we see the tragedy of samsara. Through the very activity of trying to make sense of what happened, I make it more and more difficult to free myself from that moment. What was it? Nothing. So you're walking down the street and a car backfires, bah, oh, and then it's gone. Oh my God, my heart, I better take my pulse. Boom, 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 boom. Ah, I phoned my insurance company. This is terrible. I phoned the police. That car is setting off bombs. The sounds vanish into silence. There's not one trace out there. The trace is in the mind, in the memory, in the planning, in the agitation. And so it gets built up in this reverberation where you try to work out what did it mean, who did it, why did it happen? And all of this leads to being unsettled. And so we try to formulate, to give form to the situation, pulling in the earth element with lots of nouns and definitions and substances, all on the basis of a moment which has vanished. So instead of there being the whole, with that moment being inside the whole, it takes on the feeling of separation. And then from this, subject and object vibrate more and more with more elaboration of concepts and histories and plans. And then we find ourselves in this body looking at the world around us, not quite sure who we are, how we want to be. How will I live? What shall I do? Does my life have a meaning? Does my life has a purpose? Has God sent me here in order to do something? We can develop many, many, many questions, and each of them look as if they are going to stabilize our situation. If only I knew what I had to do. But by asking these questions, we make more turbulence. So like stirring a pond, we bring the mud up to the surface so that the water becomes more cloudy. I have to think about it in order to make sense of it. The activity of the mind will explain the mind, but actually all you do is get more mental activity, because we find that we are looking at the movement of the mind and not the mind itself. Why do we do this? Because if you look from the position of the individual subject, it makes sense to look for a separate object. I want to find out who I really am. This makes sense. I exist. But maybe inside me there is some true secret essence which I didn't find yet. So if I look for myself, I will find a self. And what is a self? It's a construct. It's a separated moment of manifestation, separated from the field of experience. And the thing about ourself is it's always changing. You never get to the end of yourself because you make yourself by being interested in it. I'm going to put out the fire by adding wood. This is what we do. So the mind is not, if you look, what is my mind or who am I? The very formulation of the question has already established the fact that there is something to be found, which is why in our practice we simply relax in the out breath and sit. All kinds of experiences arise. Some like cars going by, some sensation in the body. Some thoughts seem to point towards something definite. Oh, I feel I'm here. This is me. It's a subtle feeling, but this is me. And then it's gone. But it was me. You see, it's subtle, so it hides. Carl Jung, he liked to say, psyche likes to hide. So you never quite get in touch with psyche. So I really exist, but it's very tricky. This kind of self-deception is easy to do because we are addicted to thoughts, to the elaboration of stories. So we need to settle ourselves and be present. Something arises, feels like me, and it's gone. If it feels like me and it doesn't remain, it was a manifestation, a movement of the energy of the mind, not the mind itself. But I can't find it. And this is why we have the transmission about the nature of the mind. Because you could look again and again and again, and then it's obvious. I have looked so many times. I have been honest and I have been careful. The definite conclusion is I do not have a mind. End of Buddhism, kaput. But the problem there is not that you don't have a mind, but that your mind is not what you think it is. If I can't name it, if I can't think about it, then it's nothing at all. It is nothing, but not nothing at all. We can't find the mind as something, and yet Thoughts arise, feelings arise, the body is moving, we hear the birds singing. The mind is invisible, but it displays that which is visible. The visible is not the same as the invisible, but it's not different from it either. This is the meaning of non-duality. What arises are appearances, things which are appearing, occurring. Yeah, undeniable. Taste, sound, sensation, undeniable, but not something. This is why it says in the teaching, you don't have to change your life. The problem is we are trying to add an extra ingredient which is not necessary. We are like someone who, as soon as you go into the restaurant, you say to the waiter, oh, bring me some salt. And when your food arrives, even if it's a pizza, you put salt on top. The pizza doesn't need any salt, but you like salt. Salt is reassuring because it tastes like salt. So we add the idea of my truly existing individual self, my unchanging self, as if it's some definite substance inside. So the teaching says, you are so close, but you're very far away. The mind is Vajra, indestructible, but it's not an indestructible substance. It's not a thing, but it's always present. So if your idea of indestructible is like a diamond or like some very powerful steel, then you are manifesting this usual imbalance with the five elements. That is to say, your vision of reliable and true is earth. Earth looks quite stable, but we have earthquakes, we have volcanoes, the Himalayas are still rising up. When the heavy rains come, the Amazon River changes color as all the earth, which is dissolved by the rain, flows down to the sea. Earth is very cheeky. It cheats us. It looks stable, but it's not. If you want stable, choose the sky. We can see pictures of these big atom bomb mushrooms. If they explode this on the earth, you get a big hole. Explode it in the sky, nothing. Gradually define particles of radioactive waste settle down, and the sky is untouched. The mind is like the sky, like space, emptiness. Emptiness is indestructible. Our quality is indestructible. Our basic awareness is indestructible. As in the traditional example, it's like a mirror. The mirror is not touched by, or in the sense of it's not changed by the reflection. Okay. So all the experiences you have arising and passing are only possible because your mind is not something fixed. If you were one definite thing, you would have a very restricted arena of experience. So again, we have a paradox. It is because of the emptiness of the mind that the mind is rich and full. Okay, so we go back now to think a little bit more about ethics in your life. Maybe you have some family, some friends, some work. You have to relate to these people. You know a lot about them. Is that useful? In the Dzogchen teaching, they always say that everything is instantly present or effortlessly arising or fresh in the moment. Well, but I know what my children are like. Do they believe that you know what they're like? Probably not. You have your idea. You don't know them. Does anyone know you? No, because you are not knowable in the sense of coming to a conclusion. You are experienceable. Someone can experience kissing you or cooking with you, but how you kiss will depend on your mood in that moment. How you cook will depend on whether you're in a hurry or not, or whether you're desperate to please the person. Oh, you're an amazing cook. Listen, I cook one time for you like this, once. Now you tell me you love me next time salad, because we don't know. These are how we are with people, are gestures, they're relational movements of energy. We cannot get hold of people. This is the problem of morality as a system of rules, that it fits you into an identity. So that if you are a member of this group, then you have to follow these rules. But your mind is infinite like the sky. To be a member of a group cannot be a total definition of who you are. What it actually is a limitation on your freedom to manifest your potential in a fresh, spontaneous, responsive way. So in Dzogchen, we are more concerned with ethics. The basis of ethics is being present. I have to receive you, which means I have to be able to see how your eyes are. Do you look very tired? Or how is your breathing? I have to see whether your shoulders are tensely raised or relaxed. One of the very sad things of our life is how blind we are to each other's embodiment. We show so much through our postures and gestures and breathing, but these are things you're already responding to through your own body. If somebody says, "Oh, you look very tense," that's probably not very helpful. Better to say, "Hey, shall we go for a walk? When was the last time you were skipping?" Skipping is like what children do when you go more strongly on one foot and then the other, and you turn through your hips. That's something adults don't usually do. So then you can skip. Then the tension will go out of their body. Because if you catch people with a description about them, again, it's a kind of freezing. So ethical relatedness is about attunement. Your body's giving you a lot of information about where you are with that person, how close you want to stand, and so on. And maybe they say, "Oh, I've got a real problem now. I don't know what to do. What do you think?" How should we respond? We can think 1,000 thoughts about whatever they say. What I think will depend on many things, and very few of them are you. You want my opinion. What will you do with it? You have your thoughts and you have my opinion. Which one will you give more significance to? The problem is not that we don't want to be helpful. The problem lies in the formulation of the problem. If someone says, "I don't know whether I should stay with my boyfriend. We don't get on very well and I cry a lot. What should I do?" No one can know what to do. Maybe things will change. We don't know the future. Why are you crying? If you ask, "Why are you crying?" then you get a bit closer to this embodied person. They make me unhappy. Then we have to phone the police. This is a very dangerous person who goes around making other people unhappy. How does he do this? Making you unhappy. I don't like the way he talks to me. Does that make you unhappy? Yes, because I don't want him to be the way he is. Okay, nice guy, good job. He'd have some money, nice body. I like the body, but the mind, not so nice. Maybe we fly to Brazil and get a brain transplant. It's like this. I cannot reconcile myself to my mixed experience about this person. This is how they are. If only I could fall in love with the right person, I would always be happy. Okay? If we remember Prince Siddhartha, He had a very nice wife. He had all kind of extra girlfriends allowed, but he still climbed over the wall in the middle of the night. Now, maybe he was very stupid. Maybe he should have stayed. If you look to the object, to the other person to make you happy, you will be disappointed. Okay, so he's not so bad, but how much unhappiness should I put up with? 5%, 10%? Does he provide a regular level of unhappiness? Because if he gives you 20% unhappiness every day, you could regularize yourself to that. No, sometimes he's really sweet for weeks on end, and then suddenly he's really horrible. Aha, okay. This is not really predictable. Do you know much in life that is predictable? No, but at least a boyfriend should be predictable. Maybe not so wise. Maybe get a dog. It might be more predictable. This is a big problem in ethics. It's not usually so much about the behavior of the other person, but that we are unclear about what we can tolerate, what we should put up with. Is it fair? And this is not a cognitive problem. There's no algorithm to compute what the right behavior is. This is an existential moment. This is you with someone. Will it work? How will I know? You'll know if you make up a decision. Is the decision true knowledge? No, it's just a decision. I can't know. How can I act when I don't know? You look in their eyes, you hear their voice, you feel their breathing, and then you find you're moving. You move closer or further away. It's not a problem to be solved. It's a question of the syncopation of energy. We are not people. We don't exist as someone with fixed characteristics. We are movement in a field of movement. You might be able to move with this person for a night, for a week, for a year, till you die. We can't know. And in our cultures now, we have a lot of social freedom to behave, to have many partners or one partner. There's very little control coming from outside. So this is where our meditation practice is very important. Don't fixate on the flow of thoughts. Feel the whole wave of your embodied experience. Your energy manifests through these different chakras. All of this is streaming out of you and out of that person. And you find your life being like this. No one can know how long it will last. There's not much point in the Buddha saying everything is impermanent if you want your romantic life to be very permanent. The main thing is to be loving, to be kind, to be concerned. It's the same if you're at work, if you have people under you and some of them don't work very well, you have to give them negative feedback. It's like we should always try to not put people in a box, not to sum them up, not to say, you are not good at this. Generally speaking, if you start with a conclusion, you're going in the wrong direction. If you start with questions, you're more likely to get a multi-level description of the problem. And it's always a work in progress. You might not be a very good boss for that person. You don't know how they're going to be in another job. So if you write a letter to the new employer saying, I would never touch this person, they are very deceitful, how do you know? Judgment, conclusion, freezing is against the current of life. Neither master nor slave, we are participants. So now we come to the end. I hope this is useful in some way. Thank you to Milton for the Portuguese translation and Juan for the Spanish, and to Pedro, who will prepare the Zoom recordings, and to Zhao for his background presence. So, the end. Good night.
Okay.
Happy
Buenas
practice.
noches.
Bye
Então,
bye.
muito bem, é o
Boa
fim.
prática.
Boa noite.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Gracias. Very much. Oh,
Então, obrigado.
Thank you.
Bye.
thank you all.
Bye bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye.